Good afternoon, all, and welcome to the fourth in the Impact Toolkits program. It's George 3. This is the end of the George trilogy. I mean, we might have to come back for an encore at the end of this, George. But so I'm going to very briefly give everyone a little bit of an overview. So the purpose of this program is it was created to help creative academics, shape academics, increase the impact of their projects at all stages, and increase the reach. And what we've been doing over the last couple of sessions and we'll continue to do is exploring all the different mediums, the different infographics, podcasts, webinars, websites that you can use to enrich the reach, the essence, the communication of your project. This isn't about commercialization, it's about reaching new people. It's also, as we talked about last week with the infographics, simplifying information using visuals. That whole idea that a picture tells 1,000 stories, that's exactly what George has been talking about for the last two sessions, both of which you can find on the Aspect platform, the details of which are in the chat, along with nuggets and other kind of resources around it. And that's the theme, is that, you've got a great idea, a great project, and you want to use different tools to reach different people, have more conversations, engage in whatever that sentence means for you. And that's why this project has been created. So it's 9 1-hour workshops. There are 10 in total in the series, but the first one was just Rob and I talking about the background and talking about what we mean by toolkits. We're not teaching you in this series how to build a toolkit. We are teaching you what options you have in order to start building your toolkit. That was a little bit of a conversation that you'll see more of on that first session. Facilitated by experts, that's not me. And they're all designed to be dipped into. So lots of people have come back to me. Can I watch it back? Or I missed that one. It's all being recorded, it's all being shared. And it's one of those things you can pick a mix. So you might come to one and go, oh my God, that's amazing. I need to watch the last ones. It's all there for you to find. And they're also being transcribed as long reads and takeaways. But there's just loads of great information on here for you to explore. Complemented by additional resources. And I also want community engagement. Some of you have already got in touch with me on email, which is brilliant. Share your thoughts, ideas, the toolkits that you've had, the tools that you're using. I'm loving the conversations we're having already, so please do more of that. Very quickly, there's a picture of me and my house rabbit Arya, who's currently asleep next door. My name is Lucy Payne, so I'm an entrepreneur in residence at the University of Bath, which is you've seen on my email address if you've registered for this. I'm also the community manager for TechSpark, Bath and Swindon, Wiltshire. I also work on a number of projects for University of Bristol and UWE, and also some bits in Brighton. I get everywhere. I'm a freelancer, but what I do is I help people communicate their ventures. That's my background. It's sales and marketing. And I quite like the word venture because, again, it's a project, it's an idea, it's a business, it's whatever you want it to be. I have many roles that help you kind of progress towards reaching more people and helping it do whatever you want it to do for you. It's a very personal journey. So we have nothing next week, half term. I hope you've all got some lovely plans and it doesn't rain like it is today. Then we get into websites. Do you need a website? What does it need to look like? What tools are there? George covered off Canva websites very briefly in our first session. There's lots of other tools out there. If you're not going to build it yourself, what do you need to give to the person who'd like to do it for you? So lots of advice on that one. Going to have some examples of academic toolkits on the 12th. So some ideas you can maybe get inspiration from, meet some other people who've gone through this process. 19th of June is using interactive tools to engage the audience, low code and no code, podcasts, another great way to reach people. I also like the trend now that podcasts are also videos. It was literally just like an audio experience. You now have video content to go with them as well. But quite a key theme of this is don't overcomplicate it. If you want to start a podcast, you can do it on here. You can start here. You haven't got to buy all the kit and get, the recording studio, but also you might find your university has that kit or a college near you has the kit. The Institute of Technology in Swindon has got a whole podcasting suite. University of Bath is looking into getting one. So, how can you make your life easier? That's a real theme, which George is going to be doing for you in a minute. And then there's tools and platforms to build your community. So lots of great content coming up. And if you've missed anything, get onto that platform and you can hear it back. But that's me. I told you I was going to be very, very brief. And now I'm going to hand over to George to talk to us about better photography. I mean, we have the most amazing pieces of equipment in our hands, don't we? And I for one, feel I use it very lightly. So George, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good to see. Well, I can't see any of you, but good to have. I can see that a lot of the same names are popping up, so good to know that you're all here. Looking forward to answering questions when they pop up. Today we are going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, better photography and video with phones. And if you have questions, you can ask them along the way, and there should be some time at the end to ask as well. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and here we go. I want to say apologies to those of you for whom some of what I am about to say will be obvious. I'm kind of hoping this is going to be useful for people of all levels. We all know how to take a picture with our phone, but there are ways of getting better at it. And that's the idea today. Some of you will know some of this already, so hopefully there's some new stuff for you. Right. It's me. If some of you will have seen first two episodes. So my name's George, and I have a company called Blue Fire Films. And I work a lot with academics to help them make films or help them to improve the communications around research. I was in Egypt with a guy in 2002, and he showed me this, like, his phone, and he was like, I can take pictures on this. And I was just like, whoa, this is nuts. And then not long after that, someone sent me a picture from their phone. They were in Japan and they sent me a picture from their phone. And I was thinking, God, this is just bonkers what you can do now. It's come a long way since then. Modern phones have amazing cameras, amazing. And I always go out with a camera a bit like the one in this picture, the Sony one. I've got one of those and it takes great photos. But sometimes I come back and someone who's been with me took a photo that's better on their phone, better than my, 5,000 quid camera, weirdly. And part of the reason for that is that your camera it basically improves the image that it shows you using AI. It's good at knowing how to present to you the best photo it can. Whereas a photo straight out of my phone, straight out of my fancy camera doesn't do that. Your camera's brain will change photos in several ways, and here are four of them. It will change the contrast, which means the difference between how bright and how dark some of your image is. It will change the color temperature of the photo. In other words, it will usually make it look a little bit more orange because that warmth kind of is associated with a kind of feel-good factor. It will have a little play with what's called the clarity of your photo, make it really crisp and sharp. And it will play with the saturation, which means that it will make the colors richer than they are in real life. So you look at the photo and you think, wow, that looks amazing. And that's partly because it's a little bit like the moment where, and this might show my age, where Dorothy walks out of her house in the land of Oz, and suddenly you see color for the first time, and not just color, but like, really super vibrant color. So it's a bit of a lie, your camera, but it makes photos look amazing. So here's where some of those things are. Contrast. This, by the way, is not from your phone or my phone. It's actually from a photo editing package from Adobe called Lightroom. So contrast, temperature, clarity, saturation. You can change any aspect of any photo you want to make it look better, but these are four of the ones that your phone will be using. Oops, sorry. Why use a phone over a proper video camera, a digital SLR camera? Well, phones are amazing, especially the more modern phones are amazing, but they're not as good in dark conditions. And older phones are worse in dark conditions. Very new phones, like the last year, they are getting really good at dark conditions, but older phones are terrible at it. Modern phones, you do the pinch and enlarge thing on your screen. Brilliant, isn't it? But actually, the photos that result from doing that are usually pretty awful because you're not really zooming in. All you're doing is using fewer and fewer pixels and blowing up fewer pixels. So you start to see individual pixels. So when you pinch and enlarge a photo on your phone, really, you're losing sharpness and clarity. Whereas a proper zoom lens doesn't do that. It optically zooms in and you're still using every pixel on your digital sensor. Modern Well, so phones are less good at doing that blurry background thing that is, looks great. Um, but you can do it, but it just, the result isn't as good. I'll show you a bit later on. So these are the 10 things I'm going to talk about in the next less than an hour now, but I'm not going to go through this right now because you'll see each one of these topics come up, but it will be useful if anyone watches back the video later on. Someone says, I have an iPhone SE. Is this good enough? I don't know because there's more than one version of the iPhone SE. There's old ones and there's new ones. If it's one of the new ones, yeah, I mean, they're amazing, basically. If it's one of the old ones, which I think was something like iPhone 5 SE or 6, they're still all right. But the modern iPhone SE, which I've never played with, but it will be very good. Okay, focusing. It's an obvious thing to say, but your photos need to be in focus. Number one, eyes must be in focus. I'm going to go through each of those 4 points in the following slide. Eyes have to be in focus, otherwise your photo looks rubbish. The photo on the left of this child, the eyes are unbelievably pin sharp. It was not taken with a phone. I'm just trying to show you how important eyes need to be in focus. The only time eyes don't need to be in focus is if the subject is more important than the person, like in this photo down here. So eyes have to be in focus. If the eyes aren't in focus, your photo is just not good. How do you get eyes in focus? We all know about this. Modern phones are very good at going, I can see a face, and more importantly, I can see eyes, and they make those things in focus. So phones are good at that nowadays. But if you are in doubt, I think most of you know, you just go in and, I'm sorry, how do you do this? And tap on the eye, and that will make the eye in focus. So I've done that in this photo here. But more importantly, if you are shooting video, you don't want the phone to do what's called pulsing, where it starts looking for focus in the middle of a shot. And so to overcome that, you tap on, you go to the eye, and you don't just tap it, but you hold it down. And this little box comes up, this yellow box will come up. And this is true iPhones as well as smartphones. What are they called? Android. And you hold it down, what pops up is an AE lock. That means auto exposure, or well, this is AE lock, but sometimes it's called AE or AF lock. And if it's AF lock, it's autofocus, but auto exposure as well. That means that it will lock onto that particular plane of focus for the whole of your shot if it's video. And it also means that it won't get brighter and darker. If you're inside a house and you walk outside and your phone then makes this massive adjustment for the change in how bright it is inside to outside, that won't happen if you press down and hold. It locks onto the brightness level, and that won't change. So if you're inside and you hold it down and then you walk outside, it will just be flooded with too much light. So AEAF lock is how you lock onto focus when you are shooting video. Portrait mode. Down here on this is an iPhone, and it's slightly different with Android, but it's also not different. You've got all these options: shoot slow-mo, shoot video, portrait, pano, which is shooting those long panoramic shots. And portrait mode here allows you to do the fuzzy background thing, which you can see in the photo on the right. Photo on the left, everything is in focus because it's a bright day outside. Bright day means your lens aperture closes right down, and that makes everything in focus. So everything, the bush behind you is in focus. If you want that to be out of focus, you go into what's called portrait mode, take the picture, and everything in the background will be out of focus. So it's a really useful tool. It's not perfect, but it's really useful. I will show you why it's not perfect later on. You need to check when you've taken a photo that the eye is in focus, which is what I've done here. I've taken 2 photos and I've zoomed in so you can see the one on the left, it's just not sharp. The one on the right, very sharp. And that's how you know. Always take the photo, zoom in to the eye and check that it's in focus. Or check whatever it is that's meant to be in focus is in focus. I always do a check for important photos. Okay. Composition. How do you make your photo composition or your video composition really stand out? Because it's not the sort of obvious thing. The first one is rule of thirds, and I know a lot of you will have come across rule of thirds before. Take a photo, divide it into thirds, and where your thirds meet, 1, 2, 3, 4 places in the photo, that is the place that's most interesting on this the photo. Really makes it stand out as opposed to the background's got all this other interesting going. Yeah. When I take a video on, I put not I put my thirds. Head, if I was doing this course down here in one of the thirds, I'd have all this ridiculous headroom up there. It would look silly. So
Oh, we've lost George now. We did say that that might be a problem with his internet, and we thought we were joking. So Lorraine and I can do some. Oh, George is back. We lost you.
what? Oh, I'm
We
sorry,
lost you
everyone.
talking about the thirds, which I would say not everyone knows, George. You forget you're an expert in these things. What we'll do, get yourself back started and maybe turn your camera off. We shouldn't have joked about the internet, should we? What I'll do, I think it's probably made you not
Host
host again.
disabled participant screen sharing.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, I can share screen again. Sorry, everyone.
That's all right. Turn your camera
Technology.
off and we shall, yeah, technology.
Am I back again?
You are back. It's just hold
Okay.
on. Start screen sharing. Yeah, interesting backgrounds. There we go.
Okay. So think about, if you're taking a picture of someone doing something, think about the background because the background says a huge amount about what's going on. So for example, this woman is obviously giving a maths lecture. The maths is relevant. The maths tells a lot about what the person is talking about. The portrait of this Indian girl, the background doesn't say particularly anything about her, but it's not distracting or boring. It's a kind of lovely shape which just adds something to the portrait. And again, this portrait of this chap in a market in India also does the same sort of thing. It says a lot about where he is, what he's up to. Keep it simple is a great rule for backgrounds, like this portrait of this boy. Simple background, doesn't distract. This gentleman here in the shop, the background is not simple, but it's fine because it tells tells a story about what this chap is up to, which is selling all kinds of stuff. So, be prepared to break any rule, of course, but do it in a way that makes sense. So keep the backgrounds nice and simple unless they need to be complicated for a reason. Video and photography is all about light, interesting light, how to make use of interesting light. The direction of light is the first thing I want to talk about. Pay attention to where your light is coming from. My light here today is coming from up here. In the middle photo I've taken of myself, the light is directly above my head. It's not flattering at all. It's given me what's called panda eyes. It's also made my hair a little bit bonkers. I don't have yellow hair. It's also not quite got the color balance right in this photo. The photo portrait on the left is of a chap I did a video with. He had just got into UWE to study nursing, and he was very, very chuffed about that. Look at the light on him. Interesting light on his face. It casts nice shadows. It comes from sort of above and to the side. The woman on the right is a professor of public health in Portugal, and I was doing a course with her, and the light was amazing, and her smile was amazing, but the light comes from the side and lights her up. Pay attention to where the light is. If you can't move the light, move people into the light, and move people into the light in a way that makes them look like they've got interesting light on their faces. If the light is directly behind you and you're in front of a window, you can get this weird thing where your face is in complete darkness, whereas the camera goes, oh, I can see how bright it is. Yes, I will correctly expose my image for the background, but that means your face is very dark. It's always darker indoors than it is outdoors, unless it's nighttime. When you have the window to the side of you, you can see that the light is brighter on one side of the face. In this instance, it's not much of a difference. Whereas if I completely face the window, my face is lit evenly all round. You might have heard this thing called HDR, and it stands for high dynamic range. And lots of photos, especially photos that come out of your cameras, your phones, will have what's called HDR added to them. HDR means you are able to see the dark parts of the photo well. You can see the shadows. The bright parts of the photo you can also see well. Our eyes see the world in high dynamic range. So if we look at the landscape in front of us, we can see details in clouds as well as shadows, in under trees. But cameras are not as good as our eyes at seeing high dynamic range. So your phones will do this artificially. It will boost the shadows. So you can see here on this thing, the shadows have been boosted massively so that you can still see the detail. Like, for example, in this photo, which is more like what most cameras do, you can't see her ear even at all. Yeah. And in this photo, you can see her ear because the shadows have been boosted, whereas here the highlights have been boosted, but nothing else has been touched. So high dynamic range is this, low dynamic range is this, and your cameras will be doing this. You can adjust this stuff yourself if you want to. If you go too far with high dynamic range, photos can start looking weird. This is one of those photos where I put in too much HDR here. This is a bit more normal. This is a bit like, whoa, something doesn't look quite right. That's because we boosted everything a bit too much. You can go over the top. The rule of thirds. Oh, I'm sorry. The rule of thirds is as follows. Someone asked me to go back over it. I hope hopefully it hasn't chucked me out, have it? No, okay. The rule of thirds, which I didn't quite explain, is like this. If you take your screen and you divide it this way and here, you divide it into thirds horizontally and vertically, you get your photo chopped up into 9 squares. Where the thirds meet, so there are 4 places where they meet. You can see here, 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 and here they meet. Those are the interesting places in the photo. If you put stuff right smack in the middle of the photo, it doesn't look like a well-balanced photo. If you pop the interesting things at where the thirds meet, that's where the eye or the brain finds the composition more interesting. That's basically the rule of thirds. Okay, we were here. Do we shoot horizontal or vertical? Nowadays, people shoot vertical all the time. And to be honest, most of the time people are used to it. It wasn't that long ago that I would have told people the only video, certainly video, the only video that looks good shot horizontally is videos of giraffes. But I've changed my tune and it's here to stay. What's best for the photo? It doesn't matter. It depends what you're trying to say. In this photo here, it's all about the couple. In this one, it's about the couple and where they are. It's about the landscape that they're in, as well as the couple. So it depends what type of story you're trying to tell with your photo, as to what's better, horizontal or vertical. Portrait mode works for portraits. People say it works for lifestyle and architecture as well. I would argue it depends on the shape of what you're taking a photo of. Landscape mode, definitely nature, landscapes for sure. Group photos, definitely. And event photos, it depends what it is again. The platform where you're going to show the image or the footage, it also is relevant. Instagram stories for video, yes. Portrait mode. TikTok, definitely. In fact, only. Landscape mode, but Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn can all cope with portrait mode because everyone's shooting that now. By portrait mode, I mean that, not that. That's landscape, that's portrait. People have been shooting portrait mode just because that's how they hold their phones now. But I would say if you're going to do a complicated video, an edited video, I would shoot at landscape because it works best for these platforms, but not for Instagram stories or TikTok. keep your options open. If in doubt, shoot it both ways, I would say. Shoot it both ways because it depends. Again, if it's just a portrait or if it's a portrait of a person in the landscape, which is important, then you shoot it landscape mode. But if in doubt, do it both ways. You're there, you might as well just do it. Think about negative space. Negative space is having a space in a photo where you can put words, for example, which is really important. And I've done that here. I've slightly made this up. I don't give talks on carbon capture. I'm not an expert on that. I'm probably no more than the average punter, but I don't know enough to talk about carbon capture. I know there are people here from Cabot Institute. Hello. Don't hire me to talk about carbon capture because we'll all look foolish. But this is just to go and show you that if you were going to advertise something like that, you would want a photo with negative space so that you can pop words into that negative space, or it allows space for people to just explore the photo and think so that it's not too cluttered. This photo I like a lot because it has places for me to put negative space, like down here and up here. Yeah, that's negative space. Again, I talked about keeping backgrounds clear. Why am I talking about that twice? Negative space, that's right. Negative space. This photo of this pair of people who are graduating from University of Bristol a number of years back. Maybe some of you remember them. I think they're mathematicians. No negative space, really. I mean, you could put some stuff here, but it would be so cluttered. Whereas you could put some words here, for example, because that's negative space. So think about what you're going to use your photo for and whether you need to leave some negative space. Negative space with blur in the background is blurry places are good places to put words, for example. Here's where I wanted to highlight the difference between shooting blurry backgrounds on your phone and with a proper digital SLR camera. If you can see around my head here, the camera has not done a great job of blurring the background where my head meets the background here. It looks crazy, to be honest. It's done an okay job for the rest of it. It looks a bit crazy, to be honest, there. Whereas if you look at this photo of this girl, it's perfect. The hair around her head looks perfect compared to the blurry background. That's because lenses are doing it optically, phones are doing it digitally and making assumptions, and there's nothing, you can't compare with optics, basically. So if it needs to be great, then it needs to be shot not on your phone. But it does a pretty good job. What am I talking about here? If you are going to blur the background and you want to take control over how to do it, what I've done here in portrait mode on my phone is up here there's an F. What does F mean? F stands for f-stop. I don't really know what it means. It's so long ago. I did know what it meant back in the day. But anyway, F. The F number on a lens is an indication of the aperture size. So like our iris inside a camera is a little hole in the lens that either allows lots of light in or just a tiny amount of light in. And the F is a description of whether that is a big aperture or a small aperture. Big apertures make backgrounds blurry. Small apertures make backgrounds crisp and sharp. And that is to do with, like in a pinhole camera where the aperture is tiny, if you see how light crosses over when you do the physics of the optics of pinhole cameras, that I can't go into it in detail, and I probably would get it wrong right now, but pinhole cameras make everything crisp. Wide open apertures make the background blurry. So if you want to control it yourself, you can change the F number on your camera by pressing the F up here. Small F number equals large background blur. And you can change this yourself if you want to. So that's how you make background blurry and how you control it yourself. One of the things, my favorite things to do, much to the my son likes doing it now, but to the boredom of my family, is me editing my photos endlessly to try to just tweak them and make them slightly better. If you take a photo, there's this thing up here, which I'm sure you've all seen, edit, and you click on edit, and it allows you to adjust the photo that you have taken in dozens and dozens of ways. So I press edit and up pops up all of these options here. I'm going to go through some of them. The magic wand, which is here, basically is your phone going, I'm going to make some decisions about how to make this photo look better. And it's often the first thing to try, press that, and it's usually enhances your photo and makes it better. And then there's a kind of order, and there's a natural order that you can go through that you can change. The first one, which is this plus minus, is exposure. Is your photo too bright or too dark? If it is either of those, you can change that by sliding along here. Then you can change what's called the brilliance. I don't really understand it, but it kind of adds a bit of magic zing to your photo. Highlights, you can brighten up your photo. You can lift your shadows or darken your shadows. Contrast does both of those things. It makes the difference between the brightest and darkest parts of the photo even more strong. All of these things, I've talked about them before earlier on. Saturation is how much color there is. Warmth is how orange really your photo is, or how blue it is. These are the kind of ones your phone does: exposure, contrast, saturation, warmth, definition. If you press magic wand, it tends to do those ones. So you can change all these things to have a play with them. And if you press this one here, obviously you can crop your photo, which means you can just choose a section of your photo. Play with your edit settings take a photo and play with it, because you can improve your photos enormously. Your phones, especially modern phones, will have very good editors built within the phone, but you can also get third-party editors. I don't use them because my phone's got a pretty good one, and also because if it's important to me, I will export it and I will do it in Adobe. What was it? What did I call it? Sorry, my mind's gone blank. I will use basically an Adobe photo editor that I've got on my desktop, which is more powerful. You can use Adobe Photoshop on your phone, or this thing called VCSO. I've played with it. And like all these things, there's a free version and a more complicated version, which but you can buy in things if you want the more complicated version. To be honest, you can create collages and things like that. It's good for social media, but I don't feel the need to use it. But it's pretty good. They're pretty good. There's both free and advanced versions where you get much more if you want to. What's trending, for example, which is this button up here, allows you to, turn your photos into some more social media ready things where it looks like, whoa, they've really, combining photos and photo editors and doing like this sort of thing, where you stick a bunch of photos in and it puts a collage together. So you get more fancy by using these third-party editors. If you're talking about video, there are third-party video apps. And what do? They turn your phone. Video on most phones, you can't actually change many settings. You just get what you get. And your camera's pretty good at making it look all right. Third-party video apps will turn your phone into something much more like a proper video camera, where you can control all sorts of aspects to it. You can control the color temperature. You can control whether you're shooting wide or narrow. You can change the frame rate. You can do all kinds of things. You can, importantly, monitor the audio. These jumpy up and down things over on the side, and if it's really loud, it goes into the red, and these jump up and down with how loud your recording is. You can't monitor that when you just record video on most phones. Video apps, third-party video apps, allow you to take control of your phone like a proper video camera. Filmic Pro was for many years the industry standard one. When people used to say Hollywood movie shot on a phone, like on an iPhone, they would use Filmic Pro. I have used it. I've got it on my phone. It cost £13 a few years ago. I have no idea whether it still does. I have used it, and it is good. A few months ago, someone said to me, Oh, I use Blackmagic Cam. Blackmagic is a company that makes cameras. They also own a piece of editing software called sorry, my mind's gone blank. I will remember eventually. But they own some very good free editing software. So they make the money through their cameras and they kind of hope you will use it. This was free. I have had to play with it. Good. It's really good. There's all sorts of things you can do. And it looks like a proper video camera. Down here, you've got your audio levels. This tells you whether your shot is too bright or too dark, shutter speed, frames per second, you know, your what kind of lens, wide or narrow, all kinds of things you can do with it. This is a great app if you're going to get serious about how to use your phone for shooting videos, and it is free, or it certainly was free a few months ago. If you're going to edit anything, just keep it subtle. There's sometimes people are tempted to overdo it, overcrank things. Here's an example of on the left is, it's oversaturated. On the right, it's also oversaturated and the color's completely wrong. So keep your editing subtle unless you're trying to do something a bit weird. Close-ups. I don't know why. People are not very good at close-ups. Close-ups help people see things properly. Here's just some stuff that was lying around, this Lego thing that my son made. The photo on the left, I don't know, that's when people take a photo of something that you want you to look at, they just don't do it close up enough. Fill the frame with something. Get rid of unnecessary clutter over on the side as well. Fill the frame so that people can properly look at the thing you want them to look at. Is Blackmagic Cam without watermarks? That's a good question. I think it is. I'm just checking. Sorry, someone's asked a question. Is it? I suspect it is without watermarks. I can't see. I would need to check. The reason I suspect it is because yeah, you can find that out. The reason I suspect it is because Blackmagic, their editing package, which is called DaVinci Resolve, which is something I remembered. DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is an unbelievably powerful editing package, and it's free. And it shouldn't be, but it is. It's one of those things, like they say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. DaVinci Resolve is a free editing package, which is super powerful. And I think it's free because it evolved from the color grading package, which was used on Lord of the Rings. And it was bought by Blackmagic. And I think they just want people to get to know their company, which makes video cameras, which are very good, by the way, although I don't own one. I suspect that this app is free and it's not watermarked because they seem to be a company that's into allowing people to use stuff for free. So there you go. So anyway, people want to see your subject or the thing you're talking about properly. Make it a proper close-up. Fill the frame with it. Fill the frame if you're taking a photo of a person, unless the background is important, unless the context in which you're taking a photo of someone where the background is important. Again, going back, because I know the Cabot Institute people a little bit. So if they're talking about a researcher and who's doing something about the environment is important to the portrait, then you need to be able to see the background, which is as important as the person. But often people will take a portrait of a person without getting them to fill the frame. Fill the frame with someone's face and make the background not distracting. And that's what I wanted to show you with these photos. Digital zoom is something I use it from time to time, but it's actual garbage because all you're doing is your camera has a certain number of pixels that the camera can take advantage of. By pinching and enlarging, all you're doing is using fewer pixels. So you might as well take the photo without zooming in and zoom in later on because it's the same thing. If you zoom in and then take that photo that you've just taken a photo of and zoom into that, it will look grainy, which is what I've done here with this picture of these guinea pigs. you can see how messy and noisy those pictures are because all I've done is zoom in on pixels. I'm zooming into the pixels, and therefore everything starts to look blocky and square because I've taken a single pixel and I'm just looking much more closely at it. So, if possible, walk towards things and take a photo of it if you can to fill the frame with something. I know it's not always possible, but that's a much better idea. Or get a digital SLR with a zoom on it and zoom in because that does not use fewer pixels. Okay, shooting sequences for video. Um, one of the problems with video that feels a bit amateurish, or people who are less experienced at shooting video, is it feels it feels like the shots that they've taken don't really go together. So how do you take shots that work together? This is how, by shooting sequences. Sequences are basically short sections of video that tell a story. A sequence is about a thing in a film. Sequences are made up of shots that are meant to go together and will edit together, and they tell or show the audience something. If you're, by the way, if you're shooting on your phone, make sure you have enough memory available on your phone because shooting video on your phone just chews up your memory quite quickly. So what do I mean by this? Oh, hold on, before I go on to that. A sequence is about something. So let's say we're watching a movie about a relationship between two people. Let's say one person is going over to the other person's apartment to split up with them. They're going to go and dump that person. That's maybe what the scene is in our movie. So the scene in the script would be person A goes to split up with person B. The sequence would be a fragment of that, and it might be person B makes person A a cup of tea because clearly they've got something serious to talk about. So they're going to sit down and talk about something. They're going to make a cup of tea for that person. That's what a sequence is. It's a small section where something happens. And it's made up of shots that go together to tell the audience something. There are 4 shots that you need to make up a sequence that will edit together when you sit down to edit your film. And here are the 4 shots that you need. Shot number 1 is the master shot. The master shot is a wide shot. In a wide shot is the opposite of a close-up, right? A wide shot is where you can see lots of stuff happening in the same shot. And when we shoot typically for a documentary or a drama, it doesn't matter what, the master shot will be one long piece of action where everything unfolds. So if it's making a cup of tea, person will come in, fill up the kettle from the tap, get the kettle on, it boils, they go over, they put the tea bag in, we don't cut at all. We let the whole thing play out in one long, wide shot where we see everything. And usually we don't move the camera either. It just sits there. It's your master shot. You can come back to it at any point. That's a master shot. Number 2, you want a close-up of the face of the person who's doing the action. You always want to be able to see people in close-ups because we relate to people's facial expressions and emotions. Number 3, you want a shot of what their hands, you want the doing. So what their hands are doing. In this case, it might be the close-up of the water going into the kettle, the switch of the kettle going on, if you have an electric kettle, the pouring of the water into the cup, or the putting of the tea bag and pouring of the water into the cup, spoon, milk. You want the doing shots. And that's number 3. Number 4, you want the cutaway. The cutaway is the shot that gets you out of trouble when you are editing. The cutaway is a shot of something relevant to the story, but not part of the action. The reason you want that is typically what will happen is we will shoot stuff in a way where there is a continuity problem. Continuity is where things were different the second time compared to the first time. And an example of that is they had, when they were doing the wide shot, they had the cup in their left hand. When you are going to the close-up, or the close-up of what they're doing shot, it's in the wrong hand. They won't cut together those shots. How do you get that around that problem? You do a cutaway to something that is not part of the action, but is relevant to the story. In this case, you cut away to a shot of the tea bags. And then when you cut back to the person, the mug is in the wrong hand, but it doesn't matter because you've cut away. And while you've cut away, they might have just switched hands. A cutaway is the shot that gets you out of trouble. It's relevant to the story. In this case, tea bags, or the milk over on the side before it's been used, or a pile of mugs over on the shelf. So a cutaway. Those are the 4 shots you need to tell a story with shots. Master shot, making a cup of tea. Face, action shot, cutaway. Collect those 4 shots and you will make something that edits together. There you go. That's one of the most important things you can learn about video, shooting video. Number 9, you've got to record good audio if you are making videos. Audio, people just think, oh, well, the video is the important bit. The audio is as important, if not more important, than the video, but people forget. And they think, oh, God, I've got to get great shots here. They forget how important the audio is. To record good audio, you need 2 things, people. You need, number 1, a good quality microphone. Number 2, well, let me come to that first. You need a good quality microphone, and you need to get your microphone. So I'm just looking at my time to see how much time I've got. You need to get your microphone close to the speaker or the thing making the noise. Ideally, and this is harder with your phones, you should be wearing headphones to monitor the audio that you're recording. And you should review the recording quality afterwards to make sure that it was a good quality recording, especially if you're doing interviews with people. What are good quality microphones? Is that good? It's all right. It's all right. But ideally, if you're recording an interview with someone and they're standing a distance away from you, you would get one of those little microphones that clips on here, and it can have a long wire clip on here, and then that long wire can go all the way into your phone, pop into your phone. Yeah. iPhones are annoying as anything because they have that, they don't have two ports, they have one. So you would plug your microphone into that port. Where do you plug your headphones? You need to have Bluetooth earbuds, and you need to switch your phone settings so that you're listening on Bluetooth, recording through the phone jack. That's how you do it. So you need to make sure you've done a good recording. If you can't monitor while you're recording, you definitely need to play it back and hear whether or not you've got a good quality recording. And it's hard to do that well if you're not listening on headphones. Too much extraneous noise. So ideally buy one of those, it's not that expensive. 20 quid will get you a half decent one. Clip-on mic, wire that goes into your phone so that you can record good quality audio. Yeah. Two rules. Decent microphone. Number 2, microphone close to the speaker. If I'm recording someone standing 6 feet away and I'm recording them like this, which is what lots of people do, that microphone on my phone is too far away from them to get a decent recording. So don't do that. That's the number 1 rule people do to make bad interviews. Microphone too far away from people, you can't hear them properly. That will transform the quality of your audio recordings and your interviews, transform them. Okay, so this is just going through what I've talked about. Not all microphones will work with all phones. If in doubt, Google the model of microphone you're thinking of buying and check that it works with the type of phone that you've got. It's not hard. You just have to Google it and find out, does the Rode Lavalier microphone, clip-on microphone, work with iPhone 11? That kind of thing. Okay, so this is just what I've got. I was just talking through with you. Right, number 10, last section, shoot for the edit. What do I mean by that? If you're editing, and once you've edited your own videos, and I don't just mean record something and stick it straight onto social media, but you decide to chop things up yourself, how do you shoot to make your editing process easier? Editing your own material is the fastest way of learning how not to do things wrong. You make mistakes, you start editing, you realize, oh my gosh, I wish I'd done things differently. So here's a list of some of the things you can do. Before you go out shooting, make a list of everything that you need, both stills and video, because on the day when you're shooting stuff, it's crazy busy and you will forget stuff. So if you have a checklist, that's really helpful. Get a variety of shots types. Remember, I talked about what master shot, wide shot, close-up of faces, close-ups of what people are doing, close-ups of cutaways, but there's also a variety of shots like horizontal versus vertical shots or landscape versus portrait. Make sure you get close-ups of interesting things. Action shots, shots of the environment or people in the environment, nice portraits of people. If you're going to make a portrait of people, take 10 or 15 of the same one. One of them will be slightly better than others. If you take one, it might be that they look a little bit like this. You know, when people go, they have one eye closed and their mouth looks a bit odd. If you take 10 or 15 portraits of the same person, right at the same time, one will just be better. Yeah, just ditch the other ones. Yeah. And then making sure your shots work together to tell a story. If you're shooting video, let's say it's someone walking into the lab, shoot it several different ways. Wide shot, low angle, follow behind them, portrait of the face as they open the door and walk out. Just have a think about all the different ways that you could do it. Okay. Yeah, shoot more than you need. Because when you are editing your video, you will go, oh, I wish I got a variety of shots and I've only got one and I don't know what to do with it. When you're shooting interviews with people, very often people will give you a really long answer to start with. I always say that is great. Thank you. I can really use that. Let's do a shorter one every time. Because if you don't do that, you'll be sitting there in the edit going, God, this is a pain to edit. Why not just ask that person for a shorter version? Just say, look, the video is only going to be a minute long. Can you just give me a shorter version, please? Get a clean opening and ending shot. What I mean by clean is if someone walks into a room, start the shot with the empty room and then say action, and then they walk into the room and then they get them to walk out of the shot and then count 1, 2, 3, and then cut. Because the temptation is to shoot only what you think exactly you need. But when you're editing, you will start to realize that you have limited your options to edit the sequence by not giving yourself a beginning and an ending to your shot. So here's an example. Let's say I have, I want to, I'm trying to think. Let's say you have an experiment and you want to start, let's say you're filming an experiment and you want a button press. Yeah, don't start right there and then press the button. What you want to do is, there's the button of the machine you want to record. 1, 2, 3 seconds before the finger enters, then let it enter, presses the button, and then your finger exits, and then wait 1, 2, 3, and then cut. It's really good practice to get the beginning and the ending because it allows you more options while you are editing. And editing is all about having options, many different options. That way, if you have a wide shot and a close-up of someone entering a room, you can choose, I can choose which way to start this film. Do I start it with a wide shot? Do I start it with a close-up? Give yourself options when you're editing. Multiple angles, I kind of alluded to that. Shoot a low angle, shoot a point of view, which would be like someone's, what someone is seeing themselves. Get multiple angles. Okay, that's the bulk of what I was going to talk about with 4 minutes left for questions. So hopefully there will be questions and you can ask me anything at this point in time. And hopefully there has been some useful stuff today.
Thank you, George. Do you know what I was thinking about is that before you get your camera out, your phone out, you need to think about why you're doing it. Because you talked about giraffes, and I know some of the amazing projects, I know a very small selection of some of the amazing projects you've been involved in, but you didn't fly off to Africa without a plan. So if you're going to be So making a video, taking some photographs, you've got to think about what it's for.
Yeah,
Because you can end
yeah,
up, as you say, well, the problem is you can end up with hundreds of photos, can't you? But it's got to tell the right story.
yeah. Think about your audience. Think about what the content is that you're creating, and think about how best to serve those two things. What does your audience need to know, and what does your audience need to see if you're
And
shooting video?
but also with both, is it to inspire? Is it to engage? What is the call to action of your video or your photograph? Is it I want to find out more about the project, or is it to give them a fear of missing out? Is it, hopefully with a lot of these projects, with the toolkits, it's to create curiosity, or it's to make it really obvious what your project's about. And as you say, you might have a minute, but that 1 minute could it's like a fly through of what you're doing and why you're doing it, that people want to lean in and find out more. You've had some lovely feedback. Someone said it was very interesting and they've learned lots of stuff. Well done, George.
Thanks, great. I would also say the temptation is always to try and put absolutely everything into your film, and that's silly
Mm,
because the film needs to be relatively short, and it also needs to get people curious about finding out more.
yep.
But you can't put everything in there. So put the essentials in there, and then let people come and find out more if that's what they want to do.
Exactly. It's giving people enough information. So if you video might feel a bit daunting. What would you recommend? Just doing a little, starting with your photography, getting confident with your eye, and then maybe moving on to video?
Yeah, well, sometimes you need to do both relatively quickly. I think keeping it simple, but one of my number one things would be to say um, is don't accept the first thing that you've shot or recorded, but be critical about it and learn to be critical about it. Was that okay? How could I do it differently? How could I do it better? If I was looking at that, would I understand what it was about, for example?
Or maybe show it to
So
somebody, show it to someone who doesn't
exactly.
have a clue what you're doing. You've got some questions here about
Yeah.
you don't want to feature in the film. I totally understand that one. You don't have to be behind the camera. I think letting your community or your project tell the story is great.
Yeah, I agree. You don't have to. People do engage with people though.
Yeah.
So, but some people don't like it, and that's absolutely fine. Is there someone you work with who'd be willing to do it? That's one question. I think I like having people in films. I think it adds a level of trust. But if you don't want to do it, I mean, you can do a voiceover,
Yep.
or and there's tons of videos out there where you don't see anyone, and you just hear what's going on. It's absolutely fine to do that. Yeah,
And a final question about briefing a professional photographer. If you think, okay, well, I know I want to do this, but I feel totally out of
yeah.
my depth, what does a good brief look like? Which I know could be another
Okay.
webinar. So I know
Yeah,
this kind
it could be. Yeah, it could be. So that was, I think, specifically for video.
yeah.
If someone is a good videographer, and I don't know why, there's something about that word that doesn't sit right with me, but everyone uses it, so it's fine. I think it's a strange word, videographer. Anyway, I think you need to explain to them who is the audience and what is this about. Ideally, you would have a script, but if you don't have a script, you just need to explain who's the audience and what is this film about? What do people need to learn from it and therefore need to see? The more you can tell them about what they need to see, the better. So that's the absolute first thing that needs to happen. A good camera person will then say to you, okay, well, are we? So I think if you're editing the film, which if you're hiring someone in or getting someone in, then presumably that's what you're doing. They will want to know what the different sequences are that they're going to shoot, because someone who is a good experienced video person will basically be shooting sequences like I explained earlier on. 4 shots, wide shot, face, hands, cutaway. And they'll say, what's this sequence about? And you will say, well, this is where I turn on the autoclave, or this is where we show how little, that child is doing better and is able to attend the class because of the psychological intervention they've had. So we're going to see them in the class.
Mm.
Okay, then the video person is going to think, so we need to see a close-up of them in context. We need to see other people in the class. We need to see the teacher. We'll probably get some close-ups of notebooks. That's how they're going to be thinking. So, and they'll say, what is there anything that they use like that's important as a cutaway. You might say, yeah, they have a tablet which allows them to, uh, you know, to fill in their questionnaires or work in classroom in a way that keeps them focused because of their ADHD. Oh, well, they'll think, I got to get a close-up of that tablet. So you need to tell them what's important and what for the audience to understand what this sequence is telling them about. And they will then gather that material on your behalf.
And you could have fun storyboarding it, couldn't you? I saw you
Yeah.
had a graphic with some storyboarding, and also I feel a little bit like a hairdresser. You should tell them what good looks like. Here are some videos I love. This is the style that really inspires me, so they have a feel for what that could be too. Oh, George, did I miss you?
I
Did I
missed
lose
that
you there?
because
Yeah. I was going to say,
yeah,
would
yeah,
you also show some examples of videos that you think are
yeah,
great? Yeah. I
yeah.
think the less ambiguity, the better, isn't it? So this is what good looks like for me.
Yeah. People will often say to me, "Oh, here's this thing we quite like this. Can you do something like this?"
Yeah.
And then you talk them through what needs to be in place to do that.
I think it helps the conversation, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's great. I think
yeah,
we ought to wrap up, but I've made some notes. I'm going to share some links with some of the tools you've talked about. I'm going to look into that Black Magic one and see if it's free. But there you go. George, thank you very much. The end of your trilogy.
yeah,
You've been a fabulous start to this. So thank you for all the questions that we've had from the attendees. Now, some people obviously had to leave because we have gone slightly over. It doesn't matter. It's all being videoed. I've put the link in the chat to the Aspect platform, which I hope everyone can see this time. But do check the future sessions. The link is also here. Share the resources, get involved, have a good half term, and I shall see you in early June. It doesn't feel like June today for websites, which is going to be our next one. But thank you all very much, and thank you very much, George, for all your support over these first three sessions. Oh, we have some more Q&As. Oh, lots of thanks. There we go.